was really scared. I didn't know what to expect. And I was thinking, if I had applied to Georgetown, I wonder if I had gotten in. So congratulations. I don't know if I had the qualifications at the time to make it to Georgetown. So you should be very proud of yourself and your accomplishments and the fact that you haven't been admitted to this amazing place. As Kevin said, my name is Angelo Rivero Santos. I'm an immigrant that have made a life in the United States. And I am very happy to be here. I am currently a teaching associate professor in the School of Foreign Service, where I have the privilege to be the director of academic affairs in the Center for Latin American Studies here at Georgetown. In that capacity, I oversee most of our programs, our academic programs. And I also teach in the areas of international relations, international political economy, and government, all of course related to Latin America and the Caribbean and the Western Hemisphere. So it's a pleasure to be here. I'll let my colleague Ricardo Ortiz introduce himself, and then we can tell you a little bit about what we do.
Thanks, Angelo. Yeah, so hi, everyone. It's really great to meet you all. And yeah, I'll just second Professor Rivero Santos, congratulations to you for your admission to Georgetown. It's a great accomplishment, and it says everything about who you are and where you're going in life, whether you come to Georgetown or not. I also am an immigrant. I was born in Cuba, and my family left in the 1960s after the revolution when I was 5 years old. And we landed in Southern California as opposed to South Florida, which I consider one of the luckiest breaks ever. That I grew up in the environment that I did, because I still identify as an Angelino. I'm from LA, from a place I call east of East LA. Grew up in an immigrant working class Latinx family in a really classic immigrant Latinx working class place. So my adventure through American higher education pretty much, was a thing that just happened, that I've been lucky to be able to enjoy, that I'll take some credit for, and I'll give a lot of credit to my family for the way that they, brought me up and took care of me and protected me and nurtured me. But a lot of it was really kind of, it was luck. It was luck, and it was a lot of things that weren't under my control had to get together for me to end up going from where I grew up to. Again, I didn't go to Georgetown undergrad. I'll name my alma mater too. So I went to Stanford, and that changed my life in ways that I still think about every day in the 40 years since that happened. My PhD is from UCLA. So I did all my education in California, and all of it's been in English. So I'm the chair of the English department. I was hired here 23 years ago to be the first specialist in US Latinx. So US-based Latinx, anything that Georgetown ever hired into a tenure-line professorship. So for the longest time, I was the only one doing US-based sort of Latinx studies at Georgetown. I'll talk a little bit about this later, but we now have two great new faculty, new professors in the history department, who are both professors, historians of Latinx, of the Latinx US, that I'll talk about later. So I have company now in a way that I haven't had for a really long time. But I also have a really great relationship with the Latin American Studies program. Obviously, there's just a lot of overlap. My work is definitely US based. I mostly teach and write about US-based writers, but we're always referring to Latin America. We're always referring to the larger sort of Latinx space of the Western Hemisphere. So I'm always happy to have this connection with the Latin American Studies program. But yeah, I'll stop there.
Great, thanks, Ricardo. I'll probably go off the agenda here, since there are just 8 of us. I would like to know who is on the call, if that's possible. We know Kevin and Jennifer are here at Georgetown. So listen, I thought since there are a few of us, we can have perhaps, and if Professor Ortiz agrees, I know he has to jump off the Zoom at 2 o'clock. Perhaps we can have a conversation more than anything else and answer any questions you may have. But let me tell you, at least from my side, how I ended up doing what I do. As I was telling you, I was in your shoes quite a few years ago. And I am the product of a generation that witnessed something in the region, in the hemisphere called the debt crisis, right? That had a great impact on the way we viewed the region. And my interest in Latin America actually did not come out of my high school days. I came to this country to study engineering, of all things. And I actually did 2 years in engineering. But you know, being a student in the Northeast with a Venezuelan background, I began to get very interested in these dynamics that I saw in areas like New Jersey. After Rutgers, I went to Syracuse, where I went on to get my graduate degrees, including my PhD in international relations. And I just became fascinated with the diaspora in the Northeast. I became fascinated with asking about my agency in the world, right? As a young student from Venezuela. And I decided then to ask the people that were sponsoring me, the Venezuelan government, if I could change majors, because engineering was actually a little bit boring for me. It wasn't exciting enough and it didn't really help me answer the questions that I was searching for, right? It is the first time that I was in an international environment with students from all over the world, with Latinos from New Jersey and New York. And I just got fascinated by the dynamics and the agency that I thought I had, but I didn't know how to articulate. And there's my friend Angel. Angel, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
And then I became very intrigued with the role Latin American and Caribbean countries play in the world, and particularly the relationship with the United States of America. I just became fascinated by issues of inequality, issues of exclusion, issues of racism, issues of representation in politics and in international affairs. And, thinking back, I wanted to get a degree. I'm a first generation graduate in my family, to better myself, better my family, but I really fell in love with learning. The more I learned, the more I understood I didn't know a lot. And that led me to explore questions in my international relations program around issues of foreign policy, politics in international affairs, as well as the cross-disciplinary nature of understanding such a complex hemisphere as the Western Hemisphere. And that's how I ended up doing what I do. And I think that reflects in why I came to Georgetown, to the Center for Latin American Studies, some 18 years ago. I left after a while to practice diplomacy for Venezuela. I spent 7.5 years as a Venezuelan diplomat, and then I came back 6 years ago, more convinced that the cross-disciplinary study of this hemisphere, Latin America and the Caribbean, and I agree with my colleague, Professor Ortiz, that it doesn't really stop at the border with the US. It extends all the way to New York, and it extends all the way to Washington State. So when I speak Latin America and the Caribbean, it is very difficult to do that without understanding the diaspora, because the diaspora has become part of the national politics of countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. So I encourage you when you come to Georgetown to look at the region, to look at whether it is business, whether it is international affairs, from that cross-disciplinary perspective. And that is what we do at the Center for Latin American Studies. We study the region from a cross-disciplinary perspective. We are committed to studying Latin America and the Caribbean, taking very seriously their diverse cultures, over diverse histories, over diverse political and economic processes, and advancing dialogue on the pressing issues that affect the hemisphere today and our place in the world. And as a community that lives, studies, and cares deeply for the region of Latin America and the Caribbean, we are very much aware of the harmful and destructive forces that since the time of colonization have impacted our societies. Issues of racism, issues of sexism, issues of oppression, issues of exclusion that we have experienced throughout the hemisphere are essential to what we do. And we seek to add all of those components to our curriculum, to our activities, to everything we do at the Center for Latin American Study, and that is crucial to our work. It is not only about the classroom learning on the Georgetown campus. It's also about what we do in the region and what we do in our communities here in the United States. As such, we offer a minor in Latin American Studies that is directed by our director, Father Matthew Carnes, that sends his regards to all of you. I am in charge at this moment more of our graduate education, our master's program. We offer an accelerated, this is way down the road for some of you in the School of Foreign Service, so I'm not going to go into details, but you have the option of doing a degree, an accelerated degree, where you get your bachelor's and your master's in 5 years. I'm going to give you my email if you're interested in beginning to explore those options once you get here. And the most exciting thing that we have, frankly, in our center is the research opportunities that our students have. I can summarize them in 3 big umbrellas. First are the students, the undergraduate students that work at the center. We have students through work study that work at the Center for Latin American Studies. We also have our school, the School of Foreign Service, has an undergraduate program that is called the Undergraduate Scholars Program, in which students in the School of Foreign Service that apply and are selected are assigned to different centers of their interest. And we have been blessed over the past 5 years to have more than 55 undergraduates that have been assigned to work with faculty on different projects that we have in our own research. The most, frankly, exciting project that we have going on, if I may share with you very quickly, if I can find it, is a project that came out of the necessity that the pandemic has imposed upon us. Last summer, as you can imagine, hold on a second, let's see. Everything came to a halt in March. We had students going to the region to do summer programs. We had students that had internships planned. Everything came to a halt and we had to become creative with our students. And we got together with our students, including some graduate students, but also 9 undergrads. And we conceptualized a project that I want to share with you, because maybe if you are currently doing projects for your last year in high school and so forth, let me see. Do you see that? Do you see something that says LACOM? This is the Latin American and Caribbean COVID-19 map. We have had since last summer 32 students involved, 17 of whom have been are undergraduates. 2 of the webmasters, one of the webmasters is an undergrad that is now in San Juan, Puerto Rico, because he couldn't travel to DC for his academic year. And this is really produced by our students. This is one of the examples of things you can do. So if you go to any of the countries in the Caribbean, let's just click, since Professor Ortiz is here, let me just go to Cuba and see. You can see how Cuba has been dealing with the pandemic under the rubrics of what we do: governance and the rule of law, growth and innovation, social and cultural inclusion. So if you click there, it will take you to that section and it will give you our students' analysis of what's going on in all 34 countries and territories in the regions. It's a fantastic project that would not have happened without our students who designed it. So these are some of the things that we do. And I encourage you, when you get to campus, to get in touch with Professor Ortiz, with myself, and any of the faculty at the Center for Latin American Studies, so that we can begin to work with you as you plan out your next 4 years. Very good to be here. Professor Ortiz, thank you.
No problem. I'll keep my additional comments brief just because I need to jump off like 5 minutes before 2 o'clock because I've got another call at 2. But so I don't have the same kind of institutional perch as Professor Rivero Santos, to the extent that I'm not here to pitch the English department to you. I'm here, and why would I if you guys are all in SFS or in the business school? But I can say a couple of things about classes that you can take if you're interested in culture and humanities in any way. I mean, this is going to be part of your general education experience at Georgetown. Every undergrad at Georgetown, regardless of your school, has to take 2 courses in theology, 2 courses in philosophy, a course in humanities, and sometimes a writing course that might sort of involve some of these sort of cultural aspects. We also, every Georgetown student, as part of their general education requirements, has to take 2 courses in what we're calling a diversity requirement that we're trying to reform. But if you're entering now in the fall of 2021, you'll be doing the requirement that we currently have. And you take 2 courses, and they can satisfy any other requirements that you need to do. But if they qualify for this one, right, you would take one that that covers mostly questions of difference and equality and inequality and justice and injustice based on race, gender, class, et cetera, right, in the US. So there's one that's a domestic requirement, and a second one that has more of a global reach and more of a comparative reach. So along the way, even though there's not a program in Latinx studies and Latino studies yet at Georgetown in any of the schools, or for accessible to any undergrad, there are a lot of other ways that you can, and I think this would be true of anybody in any one of the schools, if you wanted to sort of craft a kind of course of study for yourself that focused on US Latinx stuff, right? There are ways to do it. I think they're more available to students in the college, I'll say, but I think that in some ways you could, for example, if you do a certificate in Latin American studies as a senior, you can do a Latinx project. You can do a US-based project. So, just to second what Professor Rivero Santos said about the openness in Latin American studies to studying the diaspora, I'll say that the diaspora is mostly what I study, but it's mostly the diaspora that's based in the US, right? But we also, we have a comparative literature program that is, I think, about to partner with SFS on a minor that students can take. So if you were a cult major in SFS, or if you had any major in SFS and you wanted to sort of do something in culture and humanities from that SFS angle, I think that the Comp Lit minor is going to be one of it, and actually the program is going to start to be called the Program in Comparative and Global Literature. So it really will be kind of like this really great place to sort of to study expressive culture. And we say literature, like I say that in English too, right? Like I am a literature person. I was trained in literary studies. I was trained in this thing that people call English, even though English isn't the only language that literature exists in, right? My grounding really is in if you take everything that Professor Rivero Santos said about the world that he's in and the world that he studies, right, which is the actual world, and you imagine that in there's this thing called culture, right, that there's this thing called the arts, that there's this thing called the place where we go to be expressive and creative and imaginative, and we tell our stories, right, or we build our beautiful objects, whatever we do to kind of make out of symbols the world that we think we live in and that we want to live in, that we can imagine living in. That's already sort of included in the world that Professor Rivero Santos sort of described to you, but that is really my world. And within that world, of course, everything that's in that external world, everything that's in that actual world can be represented, can be thought about, can be reimagined, can be critiqued, can be taken apart and put back together in a better or in a more interesting way. And that sort of, to me, that's one of the ways I sort of describe what I do. It's really not just about stories that you read in books, although it is about that. It's about that larger thing that our imagination does, right? And that makes us who we are, both as individuals, but also as communities, as populations. And I know that there's a place for that in any one of these schools, right? But it's also here in the college and in the humanities programs in the college that we study it, that we give it a home, that we give it a space and say, this is as important and as valuable and as worthwhile to study as any of those things that we think of as being more a part of the real world, right? Because again, I mean, I'll just stipulate here that there's never been a civilization that hasn't had a culture. There's never been a civilization that didn't have its arts, right? And I would even say, I would venture to say there's never been a civilization that didn't center itself, didn't centrally understand itself through its imagination, through its symbols, through its meaningful networks of creativity and expression and exchange. So that'll be as much of a pitch as I'll make for the humanities. But you know, we're here for students to sort of dip into and explore as much as you want and as much as you're interested in. Whether that stops short of a minor or a major or whatever you can sort of fit into your course of study. But there are ways, especially as seniors, when you're doing thesis work, that you can, I think, sort of fold more humanistic kinds of projects into your work, and also fold in anything to do with Latinx anything.
Amazing. Thank you, professors, for giving your little pitch there. Really do appreciate it. I'm gonna open the floor for questions from the students, prospective students, if they have any. If not, I have a couple prepared, and but hopefully, prospective students have some questions.
I can start. So one of the things, so within Latin America, my region that I really want to focus on, and I know it's kind of difficult because it is so small, but the Northern Triangle of Central America, because both of my parents are from El Salvador, and I really am interested, especially how it plays into immigration and how it is kind of like a hot topic because of that. So within the SFS, well, one of the reasons why I'm still debating between, and I obviously know I don't have to choose now, but debating between majors is because I don't know if I want to just solely focus on Latin America or, you know, dip into every region. But how will I be able to find, like, I guess, how will I be able to explore, I guess, that region, or will I be able to explore that region within those more generalized majors like international politics or culture and politics?
I'll take I'll try to answer your question, but I want to second what Professor Ortiz said. One thing I always tell students in the School of Foreign Service that they need to look beyond the School of Foreign Service and do whatever they can to try to expand their horizons. And I am very happy to hear, I didn't know, Professor Ortiz, that there is a possibility of a joint major between the college and SFS. That is fantastic. That's very good to hear. Jasmine, I think at the undergraduate level, you will be pretty much taking the classes that you need to take in the first 2 years, right? And then you will have to decide on a major. Within that major, whether it is CULP or international politics, whatever it is that you do, you will have the opportunity to explore the world. That's what the School of Foreign Service does. Now, if you're interested in Latin America by the end of your sophomore year, and you still want to pursue more in depth the issues that you talked about, then you can pursue a minor with us in Latin American studies. And that minor will take what you have learned in the first 2.5, 3 years of your education and try to bring it down and focus it on your area of interest, which in your case is Latin America and the Caribbean, but even more specific, the sub-region of the Northern Triangle, right? Now, another place you should keep an eye on if these issues of immigration, migration interest you is the Institute for the Study of International Migration. Georgetown has, based in the School of Foreign Service, a fantastic Institute for the Study of International Migration, where they look at migration from a global perspective. But the director, Professor Catherine Donato, has done a lot of work on Mexico and Central America as well. And I believe they offer a certificate at the undergraduate level as well on these issues that you can pursue while you are at Georgetown. So I think you're thinking the right way, but take the first year or two, right, to really explore the field and the major that you will be choosing within SFS. And then we, all of us, Professor Ortiz, myself, Professor Donato, can help you shape the last 2 years to see what is more convenient or more interesting to you, whether looking at the Northern Triangle, looking at Latin America as a whole, or looking for, at the issue of migration from a global perspective. So I will encourage you, and in fact, this goes to all of you. I remember being in your position and I was a little bit intimidated by the faculty members when I was a freshman. I really was. It was very difficult for me to even go to office hours. But you know what? Don't be. Reach out to your faculty, find out what we do, learn with us. This is one of the most beautiful things about being in the classroom with you, that I think we learn as much as we can offer, because you bring, particularly all of you that have been, you know, online for a year, you bring so much of learning to us in the process of adjusting for the future of what we do after the pandemic. So reach out to us when you get here, please.
Yeah, I'll just add that, so you're right, the study of Central Americans in the US is kind of where a big part of Latinx studies is going, because it's always been sort of the understudied and the underexplored area, but it's a big growth industry. It's a big sort of like point of focus for all the reasons you can imagine, right? That I don't think I have to explain. But that's a good thing, right? And we're sort of learning that there's been a lot of sort of literary and cultural creation going on for decades, you know, since the diaspora really started to sort of land in this country in the 1980s, right? You know, DC is sort of a great place anyway, even beyond the walls of Georgetown, to do this work, because there is such a rich and vibrant Central American community, both in the district and in the suburbs of DC. You know, we've got, and there are great specialists in Central American studies at other places in the DC region. Like there's a great scholar of Central American and US Central American literature at the University of Maryland, who's a good friend of mine, who wrote, you know, one of the best books about Central American literature in the diaspora. So there are a lot of ways to make connections even beyond Georgetown, but you will find that we even just have a really great tradition of admitting students from you know, who are Salvadoreño, Hondureño from the US, right? For decades now. So it's, you know, Central America as a culture and as a place and as a presence is very much alive at Georgetown in many, many different ways.
Oh, thank you. That was super helpful. And I think I'm usually, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm very much an overthinker. So as soon as I got accepted, I'm like, okay, what's my major? Where am I going with this? Am I, you know, going to do something else? So I'm still trying to remind myself to like maybe step foot on campus before I go crazy with my overthinking.
Awesome. That was great. That was a great question. Are there any other questions before I ask my questions? Going once, going twice, 3 times. Nothing. Okay. Okay. So my question specifically is kind of concerning what Professor Ortiz was talking about. How does like the Latin American studies kind of program kind of interact with the DC community, and is there any interaction, and kind of what aspects of DC come within that specific program, if at all?
Well, I'll speak for the center. Not as much as I would like, that's for sure. And that's the honest answer. And that's mainly because a lot of our education takes place at the graduate level. However, with the Center for Social Justice, we do have contacts with the community. Many of our students are very involved in different, as Professor Ortiz indicated, this city is very rich in terms of what it has to offer in terms of community work, volunteerism, internships with different organizations of all kinds. Here, I can think of Carecen, I can think of CASA, where I have actually contributed over the past 10, 12 years for students to get involved in the community. Our director actually is very involved in the Center for Social Justice. And I know that through alternative spring breaks, many of our students have participated in different initiatives, not only around the Washington, DC area, but around the country, as well as in Latin America, actually. He has taken students to Peru to work with communities in Peru. So I wish we could do more. We should do more at the center, but I know that institutionally that through the Center for Social Justice, there is a lot of work that is done with the community. I'm sure Professor Ortiz can add to that. Yeah.
No, that was actually going to be how I led to, is that one of the most direct sort of networks that we have with the local community is through the Center for Social Justice. But students can be really creative about the ways that they want to, interact with the DC community. So if it's through social justice work, that's one thing. But there are definitely like a lot of cultural organizations in DC as well that if students are interested in that. So the one that comes to mind is Teatro Gala. There's a fully, and it's been around for decades, Spanish language theater company that does all of its productions in Spanish and does a lot of them about sort of the US Latino stuff, but also Latin American stuff and even stuff from Spain. And it's it's a small company, it's a small organization, but they're located right in the heart of sort of Latinx DC in Columbia Heights. And it's a good example, but there are many others that sort of broaden the range of sort of the kinds of activities and opportunities that you can plug into. I mean, again, it's DC, so the whole international community is here too. So, if you wanted to do stuff that was more formal and more institutional, you could do that here because everything is here. But in terms of more really sort of authentically local stuff, I think CSJ and sort of cultural opportunities are two really great ways to branch out. And I should say that I think, I will take this occasion to say bye. It's good to meet you all. And if you have any questions for me, my email is easy to remember. Remember, it's just my last name and my first initial, Ortiz R, @georgetown.edu. And I'll always be happy to answer your questions by email. So please let me know if you have anything to ask me. Good luck with everything. Thanks again for the invitation.
I can stay a few more minutes if it would be helpful for our incoming students.
Yeah, I think we have time allotted until 2:15, but we can cut it short.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah,
I could stay until 3:15.
Amazing. Any other questions? Anyone think of any questions that I'd like to ask the professor?
I'm gonna put the map on the chat, just in case you're interested. De la Com and Karen, yes, Carecen does fantastic work. She put that on the chat. Angel says, yeah, Gala is right across from Los Hermanos. Good food. We actually have a faculty member, Ana Dini, that I'm sure Professor Ortiz knows. She does a lot of work with Gala. She actually writes plays for them. She's very much involved with them. So, another, one thing I forgot to mention, before I forget, if you're looking for research opportunities when you come, don't forget to check the Georgetown undergraduate Research Opportunities Program called GUROP. I can probably look for your website and give it to you because it's a very good place. I currently am working with a sophomore, Sonia Paz Canton, who is from LA, and she and I are doing some work around COVID-19. And just check them out on their website if I can find it. Here it is. I want to put it on the chat. Because that is a nice way when you come in to get connected with a faculty member in different schools. We participate from all kinds of schools. I think there it is. Yeah, check the opportunities that you will have through GUROP because it's a good way to get to know faculty members and begin to be familiar with the process of research and the diversity of research and the diversity of students that participate in the program. I just thought I would mention that because I forgot to mention it earlier.
Oh, I actually have another question.
Sure.
I know you mentioned work study and how that can lead to different opportunities. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? And if it would be available? I don't know. I don't really know. Well, I have to do work study. So like I'm looking at my options, but I don't know if I want to do that freshman year just because I'm trying to still like accommodate and stuff. But I would like to know.
Yeah, Angel, can you help with that more than I can? Because I know we have work studies in the center every year, but I don't know how it works, frankly. So.
Yeah. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Angelo. So work study, right? It's part of your financial aid packet, and through your financial advisor, you will know whether you're eligible or you are allocated work study. But essentially, that's I think it's more it's easier to navigate from the business side of things because you will know if you have it and how to access it, which is through the SEO, the Office of Student Employment, right? It's a matter of doing or opening your account, activating your account, and you'll be able to see all the opportunities that are available and that you can apply to. And so it's pretty essentially, searching for a job, seeing what's available, seeing if it is something that you have the space to do or not. So that piece I think is pretty straightforward, pretty easy to do, pretty easy to manage. The other part is the most interesting part, if you ask me, is do I do it my first year, my first semester, and there's two sides of the stories. One, I am in no position to tell you how to manage your economics. If you need it, make your paper. You definitely go ahead. Now, is that going to require you to be a little bit more disciplined with your time management, with your academics, with et cetera, et cetera? Yes. Okay. Me as an academic advisor, I normally told my students your first year is to navigate the system, navigate the school, learn how to ask for help when you need help, learn the different resources, find your space, your purpose, your community, find that which is going to sustain you through your career. And that can happen your first semester, for example. Sometimes that takes a little bit longer. But that to me, it's rich about your first year, your first semester. But like I said, did I do it? I did it. It's just gonna require a lot of discipline. There will be less time for you to, do the extracurricular activities because you have to do 10. I normally say also, and I believe that this is the case at Georgetown. I think if you are a full-time student taking minimum 12 credits, you can only work up to 20 hours. I believe that's the cutoff. So that's even though that's labor laws, very paternalistic rule, I think also supports the fact that you're going to need a little bit of time to do your homework. And as many of you, even through your questions and through your inquiries, have let it be known that academics is important, right? In a very academic, rigorous institution like Georgetown, et cetera, et cetera. So long story short, it's easy. The business process is easy. The other piece is going to be up to you, and what you need, and your story, your journey. Doable, sure. Is it what you want out of your first year? That's a question that you ask yourself in the mirror, and we're here to help you with the pros and cons.
Yeah, just really quickly, sorry, Professor. Um, I was gonna say the Center for Social Justice that both professors have mentioned, they have great opportunities for work study jobs. I myself have worked since my freshman semester in the Center for Social Justice, working with the tutoring program called DC Schools Project, and that's one of the many programs the Center for Social Justice has that applies to your work study. Um, but not only that, you get to know the DC community, and that was like one of the main focuses I had when like I came to Georgetown. Like I know I'm at Georgetown, but I want to know like what DC, the real DC is really like. And so I applied, I became a tutor, and then right now I'm a coordinator for the program. And I've got to meet so many families, so many kids, just to like gather as much as like experience I can get from DC. And the best part was we're serving the community that's in need, which is the undocumented community in DC, and they come from all parts of the world, really, whether it be from Africa, Latin America. It's just a great opportunity to get to know people in DC, and just also I got to work with Karen as well, and just like you just create such an amazing work environment there. But yeah, there's so many opportunities for you to like apply your work study and get to know about uh, kind of DC area, but also apply what you learn in if you take Latin American study classes, what you learn there, and then apply it to like a real life situations. Because if you do come work for the Center for Social Justice, you're gonna end up working with kids from these communities that you're learning about in your classes. But yeah.
Oh, thank you. That was really helpful. I think I'm definitely going to look into the tutoring because right now I tutor like as part of a program, so I feel like it would be a straightforward transition, maybe a logical transition.
I would encourage you to do that. I really encourage you to do that. And I see that Karen has some very good messages on the chat. Um, Please do that. It is, I mean, it's all about the classroom, right? It's important, but you need to bring that classroom out where you can actually, go to the community and be humble and learn from the community. Um, it is not that we are any experts on many things to go and teach anyone anything. Frankly, you need to be humble to go and learn from the community because this is such a rich community. I had the privilege of helping CASA. CASA is the Central America The original name is Central America Service in Action. It's known as Casa de Maryland, although they now have offices in Pennsylvania and Virginia. And I had the wonderful opportunity to help them build a leadership academy a few years ago for immigrant youth. And as Kevin says, they are from all over the world. And these are kids that are finding their way in this world as immigrants and finding their agency. But it's not only finding agency, it's understanding that we have a voice. And it's not only that we have a voice, but that we have to use it. Right? That we have to use that voice to bring about change. And I think that the location that we have, Georgetown and the other schools in the area, give you a wonderful opportunity to bring that outside of the classroom and contribute to the community. Because at the end of the day, that is what we should be doing, in my humble opinion.
I'll offer to the team. I'm gonna put my email address on the chat. I currently work in the Center for Multicultural Equity and Access, and I work for pre-college programs, but I was recruited to come to Georgetown to lead the academic, the Living Learning Communities side. So to lead academics outside of the classroom into the residence halls. And this was back in 2014. And funny enough, Living Learning Community program nationally, it's about exactly what Angelo said. It's research shows that we spend 35% at most in the classroom during our collegiate career. What happened to the other 65, right? And so my role was to essentially merge, to bridge. And to be honest, I'm here to tell you, Georgetown works a little bit backwards. My role, instead of becoming a bridge, how to expand that 35% in the classroom, was to tell the students to take a break, relax, chill out. Like, you already got the academic momentum going. Like, you all want to change the world as soon as you get to campus, and that's awesome. Like, that's like that. You know, I felt really like I didn't do much in my undergraduate career, you know, the first couple of years, just working with students at Georgetown. But the reality is, what about internalizing what you're learning? Are you taking 5 minutes of your day to say, what did I do today? What did I do this week? Just to process all the good, all the learning, everything that you're accumulating, doing, taking in, giving back. I think it's important also to take care of the self. And so that's why it's important, especially your first year, to find your grounding, to find your, your foundation, and that can very well be in the classroom. I have no questions about it. But could it be with another program? Could it be with a group of friends, with a student group organizations, with the community, et cetera, et cetera. And so don't. This may sound controversial or paradoxical, but don't sell yourself short. Like, don't just encapsulate yourself your first semester. Like, be willing to know that you hopefully have up to 4 years here, you know, and so there will be time for everything. Don't try to do it all your first semester. This is always what I have accumulated in my 7 years here at Georgetown. Is almost a competition. Hey, how many all-nighters you pulled? 3, you 4. Oh, I beat you 5. It's like, no, like sometimes you need time for you to just sleep 7 hours, just one day, you know, go walk, go something. And I know that we're in a pandemic, but that's gonna hopefully come to an end this year. So don't try that. That would be the message that I'll give to you. And like I said, there's my I put my email. I have to step out. I have to go back home, but I welcome you if you have, you know, if you need just to tell somebody, hey, just hear me out. We're here for you. Hey, you know, like, I know what I need to do. I just want to verbalize it. There's people here for you. You just gotta, like Professor Angelo said, you just gotta use that voice. We're here for you. You just sometimes you just gotta use that voice to ask for help. So anything we can do, we're here. Congratulations again. You all have a great weekend, and we'll see you around.
Good to see you, Angel. Ciao. I'm going to do the same, actually. I'm going to put my email on the chat. Mine is not as easy as Professor Ortiz. Mine is AR and the number 93. Just feel free to write to me anytime, just to talk. If you have any questions about what we do, about Georgetown, about the city, about the region,
I think
happy to chat.
I think there's maybe 1 or 2 questions left, right?
Sure. Are they on the chat or?
No, I think I saw someone unmute. That's why. I don't know if they had a question or it's just.
Oh, I'm sorry. I accidentally unmuted. My bad.
Okay. Micaela, we haven't heard from Micaela.
Okay, I was gonna ask about.
You can just offer a comment or just talk to us. You don't have to have a question.
No, I do have a question. I do actually.
Okay.
So with the minor, I was wondering if there is a balance at all of kind of the language of like the text that we study, because I assume it's, it's cross-disciplinary, so you engage with a whole range of things. But I was just wondering whether, the stories that we're engaging with, whether they're going to be, written by natives or, in the original language, or whether it's going to be kind of all in English, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And as you probably know, and if you don't know, let me tell you that as a student in the School of Foreign Service, you will be required to show proficiency in another language. And that other language is usually related to your fields of studies. In the case of the Center for Latin American Studies, we usually get students that do Spanish or Portuguese. In some cases, we have had requests for French for students that do work on Haiti or the French territories of Martinique and Guadeloupe or French Guyana. I have to say they are rare, but we have had in the past students that have requested French. So as you declare, let's say you were to declare a minor, and I know this is true for Arab studies, by the way, and other programs. In our case, if you declare a minor, then you will be asked perhaps to read titles in the language of your choice, right? So if you decide to do work on, I don't know, on Haiti and you request French and it's approved, then you will probably be required to do readings in French. Most of our classes in Latin American studies will expose you to the writings in Spanish and writings in Portuguese, depending on the class, depending on the track, depending on your subject matter. So I can tell you that I am now advising a minor's thesis for a young man, Diego. He's working on issues related to Mexico, and 70% of the bibliography he has read is all in Spanish by authors in Mexico, right? So that is a long answer to tell you that yes, you will be required to have a second language at least. And depending on which way you go with your degree, you will be required to read voices in the original language. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So that's actually our time, right on time actually. So I really appreciate Professor Santos answering all the questions. Even though we had a small group, I think we had a great
Yes.
dialogue, amazing
And
conversation.
let me tell Micaela and Jasmine that you're looking at what you could be doing in a year or two. When you look at Jennifer, at Kevin, I don't know if Karen is a student or Karen is with CMA. Yeah, Karen is also a student. So thank you, Kevin, Jennifer, Karen, for putting this wonderful, wonderful program together. I know there was apparently a fun activity last night that somebody told me about. There was a Saxa night or something like that. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
How come I wasn't invited to that one? But listen, thank you to the organizers, and thanks Micaela and Jasmine. Congratulations again. Welcome to Georgetown. And you have my email. Anything you may need from us, just shoot us an email and we will reply. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Professor. Also, Jasmine and Michaela, if you can go back to the main session, the first Zoom, and we're going to have diversity outside the classroom. So, yeah, but thank you, for Professor Santos. Really
My
do
pleasure. My
appreciate
honor.
everyone here.
All the best to all of you.